Good evening, good evening. Welcome to another episode of Talking with Dr. T, conversations on bridging the gap between faith and mental health. June is Men's Mental Health Month, a time dedicated to raising awareness about the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual well being of men. While conversations about men's health often focus on physical health concerns, today's discussion invites us to consider another important reality: the emotional and mental weight many men carry every day. In families, churches, workplaces, and communities, men are often expected to be providers, protectors, leaders, problem solvers, and caregivers. Yet many are navigating stress, grief, disappointment, trauma, loneliness, and uncertainty with few spaces to speak honestly about what they are carrying. In this episode of Talking with Dr. T, we explore the weight men carry, faith, mental health, and the cost of silent struggles. I am excited tonight to have joining with me my sister, Dr. Latanya Summers, an award-winning counselor educator, researcher, author, and advocate whose work has transformed conversations around mental health, cultural responsiveness, and community healing. Dr. Summers serves as Associate Professor and Department Chair of Clinical Mental Health Counseling at Jacksonville University and brings more than 30 years of clinical experience in mental health and addictions. Throughout her career, she has explored the intersections of race, gender, power, and culture in helping relationships, with particular focus on improving mental wellness within historically underserved communities. She is the founder of the nationally recognized Black Mental Health Symposium, which equips mental health professionals with culturally responsive knowledge and skills to better serve Black communities, and the founder of the Center for Men's Mental Wellness, which is dedicated to addressing the unique mental health needs of men. Just a little bit more about her background. She is a prolific author whose works include Textbook, Multicultural Counseling, Responding with Cultural Humility, Empathy, and Advocacy, and her powerful 2024 memoir, Black Again. Her leadership has extended to national service within the counseling profession, including leadership roles with the American Counseling Association and the Association for Counselor Education and Supervision. Her insights and authenticity, identity, and healing have been featured in O Magazine and on the TEDx stage. Dr. Summers, welcome to Talking with Dr. T.
Bless you. Thank you, Dr. T. Thank you so much for this invitation. I'm super excited about the conversation that we're going to have today. Men's mental wellness and wholeness for men is very dear to my heart. So thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, thank you so much. And I'm happy to have you here. Well, I
Yeah.
first want to start because although I've read your bio, could you share a little bit more about your background? Because you are also a daughter of the AME Zion Church. So talk a little bit
Yes.
about your background, your
Yes.
journey, and just how your faith background, family experiences shaped your passion for this work.
Yes, thank you. As you were reading the bio, I'm like, oh, that's long. Did I submit that much information? Usually I try to shorten it as much as possible. What you won't find in that bio, Dr. T, is exactly what you said. I am a daughter of the AME Zion Church, having grown up in Charlotte, North Carolina, raised in at Little Rock AME Zion Church, and then with my first big girl job after the master's degree in counseling led me to Winston-Salem, where I was further groomed and trained at Goler AME Zion Church in Winston-Salem. So yes, man, I don't even know where to start. I'll just simply say, hey, I'm raised, born and raised, trained through the AME Zion Church in Charlotte, North Carolina. This is the first time I've lived outside of the state of North Carolina, here at Jacksonville University, which is in Jacksonville, Florida. I don't know how I became this champion of men's mental wellness, right? I would just simply say that's just definitely God. I was championing multiculturalism. And then I got pegged by the former president of the American Counseling Association to serve on the task force for Black men's mental wellness and the Black male experience. And every time, like even in your intro today, like we're going to be talking about men's mental wellness, and then I want to introduce Dr. Latanya Summers. I so feel like a fraud, but I that fraudulent feeling actually keeps me humble. I'm like, when you're talking about men's mental wellness, right? I sometimes think this space is for men, but the very first time that I got to do this was at the ACA Task Force for Men, being on the board with men, and they validated my experiences that oftentimes the underpinning of men's development comes through that mom, that grandmother, that auntie space. And so they really appreciated having my voice there. I think also my experience comes from having four sons,
Mhm.
and being a wife of a Black male. And all of these things just kept pushing me along this trajectory of taking a look at Black men's wellness and how we can better support them. And so I'm still happy to be doing the work, even with the culmination of the Center for Men's Mental Wellness in Jacksonville, where I train students to be able to work with men. We are not equipped to counsel men. In fact, my textbook is the first textbook that includes men, simply because presumably men are at the top of the chain with power. But I'm like, when they sit on our couches, we don't know what to do with them because we're not trained. And so
Yeah.
it's very dear to me to ensure that when men sit on people's couches, and especially Black men, I need you to know what to do with them.
Absolutely. And I would agree with you. This is nothing but God, and kind of catapulting you to this area. And when I was thinking about who I wanted to have for this month, for June's Men's Health Month, you immediately came, and that was nothing but the Lord, because I could have reached out to other people we know mutually in this profession.
Yes.
God said, no, I needed to have you. So, you talk about the importance in terms of training, counselors in training, having the conversation, but let's talk more about the importance of conversations about men's health, including emotional well-being, mental health, and the impact of silent struggles.
Yes, thank you so much. When we're in the doctoral program, we're taught the three-legged stool, right? It's teaching, it's research, and scholarship. When I take a look at men's mental wellness, although I'm a big proponent of the 8 dimensions of wellness, but for this particular talk, we'll just look at men's wellness as if it is a three-legged stool, where there is the faith and spirituality, where there is the emotional and psychological well-being, as well as the physical health. Oftentimes, when we're talking about men, we're definitely talking about the spiritual health or the physical health. Hey, men, get to the gym. You need to take care of your body. We neglect gravely that emotional and intellectual support. We've socialized men to not talk from young boys, right? We've socialized them to not talk, to not feel, to not trust what they see. And it has impacted them greatly at the adult level, where they're needing to talk and be assertive and express themselves. And unfortunately, the only way in which men tend to be able to do that is through anger. That's a whole different topic. But if any one of the legs on the stool is broken, this emotional and psychological well-being is broken, there's no way that stool can stand. It's lopsided, and our men are just limping pretty much through life without that underpinning, and the development of all three of these pillars: the
Yes,
emotional, the physical, and the spiritual. And so
yes.
I'm happy to undergird and build up that third leg of emotional and psychological well-being for our men.
Yes. Yes. And so here it is. We're talking about the emotional and psychological well-being of our men. You just mentioned anger, which is an emotion. So I do want to kind of talk about that a little bit, because we talk about the silent struggles of men, but
But
sometimes that silent struggle comes out in the form of anger. Talk a
it
little bit more
manifests.
about that. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. The only anger we've permitted our men to feel, I'm sorry, the only emotion we permit them to feel is anger. And so it's almost no wonder that that is a go-to. We have not permitted them the ability to become emotionally fluent in sadness, and hurt. Because we say, suck it up, be a man. Even the Bible is like, gird up your loins like a man. So there is talk in all regards on how to be a man and how to be strong. I love David's depiction in the Bible. People are like, David bipolar. One moment he praising the Lord, and the next moment, he's, oh Lord, the sea has encompassed me, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, that I'm down here in the depths, and why hast thou forsaken me? But I'm like, he's the most affluent man that I know, that he can express his anger, his want for revenge, his sadness, his pain. He is so emotionally fluent. I think he's a great example for men to be able to develop the language of, I am not well, but I know you won't leave me, right? So yes, the only anger, the only emotion I think we permit men to be, if they're angry, we permit that, we respond to that, right?
Yeah.
But when they're hurt, we don't know what to do.
Yes.
Um, Yes, when they feel anything else, we don't know what to do. And then the media plays upon that by depicting our men as angry, animalistic, brute, criminal, someone who is not human. We
Yes.
dehumanize them, so we
Yes.
become afraid of their anger, yet we don't permit them a full range of emotion. And I wish we would do better than that. And it starts from when they are children.
Absolutely. And I'll come back to talking about that from when they're children. So here it is. We permit the anger, we dehumanize our men, but we also teach them to be strong, self-sufficient, and
Yeah.
resilient, right? What does it cost men when they believe they must carry pain, grief, stress, disappointment alone?
Yes. I was blessed to be able to do this research on the dynamics between Black men and their moms. And it came on the heels of George Floyd's murder. We know
Yes.
that at the time of his murder, he called out for his mom. Not long after that, Dante Wright in the same city was stopped by police, and he called his mother on the phone. So she could hear his interactions and keep him calm. And her voice was the last that he heard because he was murdered at that interaction. And then Tyreek Nichols, right, was on his way to his mother's house before he was murdered. And I started thinking, what is this dynamic between Black men and their moms? And how can we use it to help Black men be well? That study was so eye-opening, Dr. T. Yes, we teach them to be strong, resilient, and caregivers, and they carry it silently. But what came out of that study is men carry the blessing and the burden of being men. The blessing, hey, I'm happy to represent Black men. I'm happy to be a Black man. I want to groom the younger men, but the burden of it is we make them silent simply because they say things like, I don't want to be a burden. I don't want, my mother to feel the guilt of the pain that I'm carrying, so I keep silent. My wife has her own issues, and so I have to be silent there. I have to be this model for my sons, and I can't be weak. So we have taught them that to be emotive, to show any kind of emotion outside of anger, which is power. Anger is associated with power, which is the only emotion that they get to feel because it is it is a powerful emotion. And otherwise, they're just silently carrying the burden that we've helped socialize them to have, to carry this weight. Yeah,
Yeah.
silently. And it's weighty. And I will tell you that when men don't talk, it manifests in other ways. It's coming out. It may
Yeah.
not be coming out through their mouths, but it's coming out in other ways. Yeah, anger is one, but the physical health of our men is atrocious and crazy. The high blood pressure, the high cholesterol, the diabetes, the unhealthy habits. In her book, Dr. Rita Walker, The Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Wealth, one of the things she says that I love, she says, look, the Black community, we're not going to kill ourselves the way in which the white communities will do it. They will hang themselves, they will, shoot themselves. Black people, what we're going to do is we're going to stop taking care of ourselves. It's a
Yeah.
slow suicide. We're not
Yes.
going to the doctor. We're not taking the meds, so and I think for Black men that carry the burden silently will do the slow suicide route just by not taking care of themselves. But I think the more we say it and raise awareness, and as women support the men in helping to take care of themselves, I think we can change the narrative.
And I appreciate that. And so I'm going to connect a couple things that you've just said, because we know mind, body, and spirit's connected, right? So we
Yeah.
talk about
Yeah.
that three-legged chair that you were mentioning. We have many men who are leading with a limp, right? Because that
Right.
one of the legs of that chair is broken. So anybody sits in the chair, and it rocks back, one of those legs is shortened. And we know that our emotional and mental well-being can be manifested in our body physically. So I really want the men that are listening tonight and listening
Yeah.
to the reporter, and the women who love these men,
Yeah.
and the men who love these men, to be able to understand that it may be coming out in their physical diagnosis. I don't know how many times you and I and other counselors may get a referral from a medical doctor when they say, hey, there's something going on emotionally that's manifesting in their body physically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And men can feel it. Here are the symptoms. I think, again, men aren't given the permission to take a look at the symptoms, or when they see the symptoms, it's like, oh, it'll go away. Let me correct something. But I'm like, listen, brother, you're not sleeping. Your sleep is interrupted. That's a huge problem. We think it's just sleep. No, no, no. Right? That sleep, it prohibits you from taking care of the high blood pressure,
Yep.
the cholesterol, the stress, the weight gain. It prohibits you from taking care of that. You've got to sleep. Their appetites all over the place, the craving of sugar and salt. I heard this thing that when you're craving sugar, you're craving the sweetness of life, right? You're craving joy or happiness or comfort. When you're craving salt, it means loneliness. But it was just interesting, the way in which the body is craving what it needs through food, because we're not permitted to get it in these other areas. But it's coming out. It's coming out. It's coming out. The
Yeah.
sleep, the eating, yes, the holding of the breath, so the sighing and the sleep apnea. I mean, it's leaking. The body is leaking, and it's telling us, what's wrong. We're just not listening. We're just still
Right.
limping.
Yeah. And I think it's important because when we're talking about it spilling out, it's being
Oh,
projected and onto other people. As people have heard me say, that Pepsi bottle is exploding on family and friends and in their work, right? Let's put a name to some of that heaviness that you're talking about. What causes that explosion? What are some unique pressures and expectations or experiences that Black men often carry and impact that spilling out?
yeah. When you look at the unemployment rates, the disparities in pay, the caregiving, societal's beliefs that Black men are not human, so they're not heard, they're not taken care of. Oh my gosh, can we just talk about race and prejudice and bias and the discrimination that Black men face on their jobs? Um, when they're the only one or the few, or even when they're many, then there's the crab in the barrel, right? Because we've met our quota. Like all of these things you can't name and say, but you experience
Yeah.
is crazy.
Yeah.
Um, child rearing, and then the pressures or the expectations, or if your father wasn't there, you're literally having to learn how to be a father. And how do you learn that? You're looking at the men in the church, you're looking at men on TV, where there may or may not be the best representations of how you do this because you don't have a roadmap. Like all of those pressures
Yes.
that men face
Yeah.
are invisible but weighty. And like you said, that Pepsi bottle, Coke bottle is just exploding and leaking, leaking, leaking. There's so many. There's so many. Women, we're taught to talk. We're when the girl children talk, 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 talk. You can cry, you can whine, but
Yeah.
a boy fall off his bike is you better get up,
Yeah.
suck that up. Boys don't cry.
Yeah.
Like we're still socializing them as men. Hey,
Yeah.
we don't show no emotion.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, keep that bottled up. Or even our parents, what is it? Shut up or I'm gonna give you something to cry for. Like we
Right.
literally couldn't
Yeah.
be emotive. And then we want to put them in talk therapy, right? And say, now you've got to talk. But I'm like, you've got 20, 30 years, 50 years of being silent. And here's a therapist saying talk.
Yeah.
So they're just culturally relevant interventions that we utilize for men to help them get to the place where they can talk, trust, and feel.
Yeah. So you brought up 20, 30 years of holding things in, right? Let's talk about early experiences and how they impact later experiences. We as a Black people are resilient anyway, but there can be some things later in life that trigger some of those adverse childhood experiences, the trauma, the generational effect. Talk a little bit about the early experiences and the impact on later development for Black men.
Yeah, I wish I had the 10 questions that make up the ACE test, the adverse
Yeah.
childhood experience test. There are 10 questions, and when you answer one of them, you get 1 point. This is the only test, Dr. T, that I have a perfect score on, a 10. And the sample questions are things like, did you grow up in a house where there was not food? Was there ever a time that you were, hit, punched, slapped, kicked, blah, blah, blah. Sexual exploitation. Was a parent divorced? Were your parents divorced?
Right.
Was there incarceration? But there are these 10 questions. And if men take a look at those 10 questions, I know I'm not the only one with a perfect score, but the way in which the adverse childhood experience test, survey, assessment works is that we are able to predict how you will be as an adult with your score on that test. And so for men, when you have a high score, it's like when you have a 4 or more on the ACE test, and here I am saying I have a 10, then your health, there's this comorbidity in health, there's the depression and the anxiety. You're likely to be a chronic smoker or a drug user. You're likely to be unemployed or underemployed. Like there are these childhood experiences are predictors of where you will be as an adult. So that foundational stuff is super important. But as parents and even as men, we think, oh, the child is they're not even gonna remember this as they're an adult. This is something that I'm doing at 3. I'm just doing drugs, or I'm just doing this at 3. I'm not going to church yet. Now they won't remember it. But those foundational years between 0 to 5 and 7 are super, super important in the building up of a strong, healthy Black child who eventually becomes a strong, healthy Black man. Wait, and this is what I tell my children and supervisees. I'm like, we're all in recovery from something. My childhood is always at my heels. And when I think about that for Black men, I'm like, your childhood is always at your heels. The things that you've experienced as a child, there are triggers every day that remind you, whether it's a smell, a look, a saying that you haven't heard since you were a child. But there are always these things that puts your nervous system back at 5, 7, 10, 14. Even though you're a 30, 40, 50-year-old man, you're in the place of a child. And that daily exposure on the central nervous system is not good. It
Absolutely.
horribly impacts our health.
Absolutely. And that then becomes, again, what we talk about, those silent struggles, right? That
Yes.
start to leak out and spill out in a person's health, but also in their relationships, right? So here it is. We've kind of put some names to what is internal, right? You talked about in your TEDx talk for challenging us to know pain, right? So what does it mean to know pain rather than to avoid it?
Yes. I had said in that TED talk, which was about 2021, so about 5 years ago, when we were all in pain, in the precipice of COVID, having to sit with ourselves, with our own childhoods eating us up. And now with the silence, we could hear things that we've been avoiding. And I'm like, we're just a pain averse society. Shoot, rather than experience pain because it is so heavy and great and, persistent. It's easier just to emotionally eat or use drugs or use sex or, use a significant other or, to not experience the pain. It is great. The more mature we get, we have to know spiritually pain is good for us. And it's just a hard way to perceive it or to reframe it. But even David says, it was good for me to be afflicted because now I know your ways. Without the chastisement and the discipline, of God, we don't grow and mature and have hope and have character. These things, that the Bible says are byproducts of pain. We too busy want to escape it. But this is also for men. But that to know the pain that we experience isn't something for us to just avoid and say, oh, I'll go to the doctor someday. I'll take care of this thing that I feel in my body or this emotional pain, this inability to sleep. I'll take care of it one day. It's like, oh no, this pain is here as a ding, ding, ding so that you get the help that you need so that you can get on the other side of where God wants you to be. There's a trajectory for your life. But if you avoid the pain, it's hard for the Lord to get there. In fact, all of the minor prophets of the Bible follow this same kind of pattern. It's when you don't listen, the Lord inflicts more pain, or not inflicts, permits more
Yes.
pain
Yes.
because his goal is to get you to come back. But we're taught to be such a resilient and a strong people that we have to keep getting in pain to even get help.
Yes.
And so I think it's a positive reframe, although it's hard to look at it that way. But we have to become acquainted with pain to be able to obtain the gains that the Lord says we should have. We should be an abundant people according to the word of the Lord. We should be the head and not the tail. It just feels the opposite.
Yes. Yeah. And I appreciate that. When you talk about pain, I think about, I come from my research with crises, right? A crisis can be dangerous or it can be an opportunity for growth. And when I talk about a crisis that causes pain, it could be a crisis, an existential crisis. Why is this happening to me? A community crisis. You mentioned George Floyd. It could be a crisis that's race-based traumatic stress, right? A crisis could be dangerous, but it can be an opportunity for growth. So experiencing this pain, acknowledging the pain is important to emotional healing and growth, right?
Absolutely. It has a purpose. And while you're speaking, can I just mention spiritual bypass in case there are brothers in the church or sisters in the church who are watching? One of the things that we're groomed to do in the church is still avoid pain. And the ways in which we avoid pain is speaking by beliefs. Like I remember I'd be crying in the church, and I'm a Baptist, I'm a minister in the Baptist faith. So grew up in AME Zion, but a licensed minister in the Baptist faith. I'd be crying in the car on the way to church, just overwhelmed with life. And then
Yes.
as soon as I hit the church, they're like, "How you doing, Minister Summers?" I'm like, "Blessed and highly favored, too
Yes.
blessed to be stressed," or taught to say all is well, because that's Bible. But that's what's called spiritual bypass. It means like a gastric bypass, very useful for those of us who need to lose weight but are not able to lose weight physically. We can have a gastric bypass, which helps us to be able to lose the weight without the exercise and the nutrition until we need, anyway, we still
Yes.
need the nutrition. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
The
I got you.
spiritual bypass permits me to not do the work that I need to do to heal from my trauma, the racial things that I experienced, the things that you're experiencing. And as a man, I'm using scripture to bypass it. I'm like, that's maladaptive. It is not healthy at all to speak Bibleese. And we just have to know, hey, God and Jesus, supernatural, meaning that anytime the Lord healed somebody, he used something natural to do it. The blind man, clay, natural, for a supernatural reason. But we just want the we want the super without
Yeah.
doing the natural. We literally have to do the natural work. We have to know that pain so that we can obtain the gains that are designed, delegated, allotted, measured for
Right.
us.
Yeah. And I love that. Thank you for giving the definition of spiritual bypass. What came to mind was it doesn't have to be either or, it can be
Right,
and both, right? I can be
right,
stressed and blessed. I can
right,
still be living and
right.
feeling good and grieving, right? So
Yeah,
here it
good.
is. We talk about, this and both. Let's talk a little bit about how churches, how faith communities can help men understand that acknowledging emotional pain is not a sign of weakness, but an act of courage and spiritual maturity.
Yeah. I'm like, do you know how strong and courageous you have to be to say I'm hurting?
Yeah.
That is boldness. And so we just have to permit space for that. Usually we ask people, how you doing? And we done walked off before they can even answer.
Right.
Or we permit answers like fine, okay, good, which tell us nothing. We want to hear those answers. But when we generally ask a man how he's doing, wait for the brother's answer. And if he
Yeah.
says good, fine, all right, challenge him to use a feeling word. I'm glad you're doing good, fine, and all right. But that tells me nothing. Good, fine, and all right is my hair, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, yes. It's not an emotion, it's more of a judgment. But like, how are you doing? How's your family? How you doing at work? There was another brother who was killed. Did you, if you saw the video, how did that impact you? But like asking these probing questions to see how the brothers are doing. When George Floyd and these brothers are murdered and we see the images, as as white people, it may spark compassion, like, oh my gosh, that was horrible.
Yeah.
As a Black woman, I see, oh my gosh, that could have been my son or my husband. When a Black man sees that, Dr. T, he sees himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So imagine the pain we feel as women to see it. Imagine what a Black man feels every time he sees that image and he's seeing it day after day. I'm like, and where do you go where you can talk about that?
Right.
But anyway, the struggle, silent, weighty, and the church should be the place where I can come to do something other than give my service and
Yeah,
give my time and to give my talent. I want to be able to give myself, my true, authentic self. But if I got to cry in the parking lot and come in and be too blessed to be stressed, I'm not being real or authentic.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think about the work that I do and working with clergy and their own personal life, because I talk about pastors and leaders and ministers and clergy as shepherds, but also as people, right? You are a person. You have a right to experience this pain, the and the both. And I think about clergy and ministry leaders, this whole idea of compassion fatigue, because now you're dealing with your own self. And every time you see anything that represents George Floyd and how it's impacting you, but then receiving that from your congregants and those that you're serving. So how do we help men and especially clergy and leaders and people in the church to understand this whole idea of self-care and taking care of self, but also understanding that compassion fatigue?
Yeah, my bishop right now is how he's authorized in the church where I am now, is going through a physical struggle, but he's still preaching, he's still teaching. And I'm like, no, I would rather for you to sit down and trust someone else to give the word while you recover. But the simple fact that he keeps getting up there, sending the message to men that even though you limping, you
Yeah.
get up here and you take care of the people. And I'm like, it's not the message. In one way, I'm saying, I don't know, have faith in Jesus' will. But when I'm looking at your life, I'm like, I don't see you permitting Jesus to do it. You're still
Yes.
trying to do it within yourself. And I understand you don't want to appear weak to the congregation, but you're not permitting the congregation to see the vulnerability you want them to have or to show. So I don't know. We're just simply going through that struggle. And I'm just looking at him, and all I can do is pray. Right. All I can do is pray. Father, yes, give him the wisdom and discernment to sit down. He's
Yeah.
killing himself. But honestly, remember what Dr. Rita Walker says. I'm not going to suicide. I'm not going to kill myself in that way, but I
Right.
will kill myself in this way. It's a slow. So I'm so concerned about him and concerned about other pastors who still portray the strength that the Black community needs, when I'm like, no, the strength really is our vulnerability.
Yes.
This strength and silence really comes from slavery. We weren't permitted to talk about how tired, how hurt,
Yeah.
how
Right.
much. Yes, right.
Yeah.
If you showed any pain, you may get whipped anymore. So you literally had to, buck it and be strong. And I'm like,
Right.
we no longer are under the system of
Right.
slavery and colonialism in that way.
Right.
But we've just picked up where they've left off, and we're just harming ourselves.
Yeah.
We're dying.
Absolutely. And I think you talked about being able to model this idea of self-care. We know that self-care is a courageous act of justice, right? We
Yeah,
yeah,
right,
we
right.
talk about self-care as political, but I will also say it is important for those that are leading with a limp that to train the next generation. Being
Yes,
able to model this for the next generation, right? And
agreed.
being able to allow somebody to help, because we're
Yes,
not used to having somebody
yes,
come in and help us.
yes. So, right, we want Black men to be vulnerable and ask for help, but the model in the church is not help, right?
Yeah,
Unless it's the ministry of administrations where I'm carrying your Bible, I'm your bearer, your
yeah,
armor bearer.
yeah.
But I'm like, honey, Jesus had 12 disciples. He had enough sense to know I'm not gonna do this by myself. Even
Right,
if I can, I'm gonna
that's
go
right.
get 12 disciples. I'm like, what a
Right,
model of not only discipleship, mentorship. And he did not send people out one by one.
right.
Moses was like, Jethro was like, look, Moses, you better go get some elders to help and let them take care of the little stuff and you do the it's literally in the Bible.
Yes,
Discipleship, mentorship, and pipeline, having a
yes.
pipeline of people who can hold your arms up. Even Aaron did that for Moses. I don't know where we get. This is my calling and I have to do it, even if it kills me.
Yes.
I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So that's one ways in which the clergy and the parishioners and the pastors can help
yeah.
show that vulnerability is not weakness. We need to ask for help.
Yeah. Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I'm thinking about, the many churches and ministries have health fairs, and at the health fairs
Yes.
address the health of men with those three prongs on the chair. So not only the physical health, but then having the emotional health and the spiritual health as part of those health fairs that you have at your churches. So I think that that is really important as well. Um,
Yes. Yes.
let's shift a little bit because in our introduction, I talked about you being a professor and chair at Jacksonville University for clinical mental health counselors. We're going to have a
Yes.
number of counselors and social workers and marriage and family therapists listening to the show tonight. We're going to have those who are already licensed. You have a book. You talk about training for the center that you have in Jacksonville. What should our helping professionals who are listening tonight know in terms of their knowledge and skills when working with Black men?
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. T. I think that's a really good question. When we are trained to become, and all my experience is counseling. I know psychology is a bit more woke. Social work may be a bit more woke in this, because they have theorists who are Black. But in the counseling profession, we are trained by white. The theorists are all white. Ellis, Freud, Pearls, Whitaker, name them. They're all white. And the videos that we watch are them training, doing work on white women. We are not equipped to
Yeah.
work with, one, men, because the videos of working with men are very scant, and then men of color. And so, one, with the liberation framework, which is what my textbook was built upon, like liberation, I'm getting free as I free you. I'm not free until you are free. But one of the principles of the liberation psychology is that we have to de-idolize what we think about Black men. All of our ideas of Black men are through media, news, so on and so forth. And so when they sit on our couches, when we are not informed, we still treat them from that deficit lens,
Yes.
right? But a strengths-based lens means, wait a minute, this man is intelligent and smart and resilient and have these inner resources, these external resources, right? We just don't look at him wholly. We look at him from what we believe that he is. It's why Black men don't recover in addictions, because society, we believe that they should be using drugs. So even our drug centers, we let them prematurely walk out or go AMA. It's a system. It's not the men, and that's
Yeah.
what liberation psychology literally is. We're so busy trying to help them deal with a problem or treating them as if they are the problem. It's the system is the problem, brother. Let me help you work on the system. Can we look at your job from a systems perspective? It's not you.
Yes.
Right. So working from a liberation system of oppression framework is one of the things I believe will help free our brothers, but free us as practitioners as we work with them.
Absolutely. So now I'm gonna go back, and this is a good place to insert your Black Mental Health Symposium. Tell us a little bit more about the Black Mental
Yes.
Health Symposium.
Yes, thank you so much. That isn't, yes, this is my not talking about myself. Yes, one of the things I recognized very early on, the symposium turns 10 this year. So, yay, I'm super excited about that. 10 years ago, way before we were talking about Black mental health or splitting mental health, by race and gender, we were still doing this cookie cutter counseling. But even at our flagship conferences, I recognized that we would be in the conferences like, hey, well, how do I take what you're teaching to the Black community, to the LGBT community, to the disabled the community of people who live with disabilities? How do I take this back? So we're paying money and going home to modify to work with the communities that we served. And I thought, what if there was a conference where you didn't have to ask how
Yeah.
you modify it, because it's already scholars who are doing the work to ensure that Black people are well. And so the symposium was born under that premise. So the training that we do there, 48 sessions that people can choose from to walk away with 12 CE credits, about 500 people from across the country come to learn how to work with Black youth, Black couples, Black families. There are nuances that Freud and Adler with the inferiority complex. And I'm an Adlerian to my heart, but I cannot treat a Black man for inferiority complex, knowing that he lives in a system that perpetuates inferiority. Um,
Absolutely.
so in the symposium, these nuances are already built into the clinical experiences and work. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I wanted to bring that up because we're talking about those counselors, social workers,
Yes.
psychologists, who are listening tonight. There is a place that you can get some additional training to enhance your practice. So now
Yes.
going back to the training, the practice, how would you
Yes.
respond to the question or the statement, I should say, that I can only work with another Black man as a Black man? Does there
Yes.
have to be a perfect match when it comes to counseling, relationships, and therapy?
That's an amazing question, Dr. T. I want to go back to the symposium and just let folks know, hey, you can, the symposium is this September, September the 10th through the 11th. It's a Thursday and a Friday. So yes, definitely make sure that you add this to your toolkit and your resources for training. Your question is, hey, do I need to be a Black man to work with Black men? There's a whole lot of research. My research is on enhancing the impact of power, race, and gender when we are culturally different. So when I'm working with a male, when I'm working with a white person or a person of a different religious, I work to enhance that. The research about when we're culturally matched, yes, there are so many advantages. You can say something and I know exactly what you're talking about. You don't even have to educate me on what you're saying. Like my mom beat the black off me. I know exactly what you're saying. However, being culturally matched might mean I over identify that I'm missing something. So, because you say your mother beat the black off you, I'm not even assessing for abuse
Yes.
because that terminology is common.
Yes.
But you could have been abused and I will have missed it.
Yes.
Because I'm from a charismatic faith, you're telling me about visions. And because I come from that faith, I over identify and miss the fact that I need to be screening for hallucinations. Does that make sense?
That's right.
So,
Absolutely.
yes, although there are many benefits to being culturally matched, some of the disadvantages are my way of recovery may not be your way. And I may impose what has worked for me in my recovery on you because I identify with you. So there is great benefits to having someone who is culturally diverse just as much as there's great benefit to having someone who is culturally matched. Really good
Absolutely.
question.
Absolutely. And that's why I think for all of us as helping professionals, clinicians, we have to engage in our own self awareness on a regular basis so that we're not spilling out our beliefs, our
Yes.
biases, our values onto our clients.
Yes. And being culturally different, when I said earlier, I just feel like an imposter doing Black men's mental wealth. I really think this space should be for Black men. Here's a way in which I have been able to help Black men. The students that I trained to work with the men, I trained all male students. I'm like, you need a male counselor.
Yeah.
But then I started training women, and men had a greater response to the
Yes.
women. They had great response to the men,
Yeah.
greater response to the women, because oftentimes those childhood experiences, what we uncovered was a mother wound,
Yes.
some rupture between the relationship between a Black man and his mother that he didn't have the tools to repair with mom, but that
Yeah.
he could repair with me. And and I just thought amazing. And then he's in a relationship with a woman that he needs to repair these childhood things so he could be a better spouse or parent. I'm like, that healing actually came from having a female therapist. Not all the time, but that
Right.
is a dynamic to look at. So if you're a man and you're looking for mental health, yes, consider a male. But if there are these things where you find my relationship with women, I'm
Yeah.
seeping out, this
Yeah.
thing is seeping out on my relationship with women, you may need a woman therapist.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you saying that. And whether you're for the clinicians and the helping professionals that are listening, I also believe that it is important to develop that therapeutic relationship, because our
Yes.
Black male clients are not going to care what you know until they know that you care, right? And so there is
Amen.
some of the research that I have read, that as clinicians, we have a 50-50 chance of a Black man returning for a second session, right? And
Right.
so it is important to develop that therapeutic relationship and understanding your own self going into that relationship.
Yes, right. Modeling the authenticity, the genuineness, that strengths-based approach. A man can pick that up. Like you said, you got a 50-50 chance. And I will also say to men, like, don't force yourself to continue to be with a therapist because that's the one your insurance sent you to. I
Yeah.
always say finding a good therapist is like finding a good barber.
Yeah.
Everybody can't cut your hair.
Yeah.
But just because you got one bad haircut doesn't mean you're going to stop getting your haircut. It means you're going to keep looking. And that's the way you have to do therapy too.
That's right.
Find a good therapist like you would find a good barber, and then you stick with that barber, right?
Yes.
It's the
Absolutely.
same.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So here it is. We're talking about therapy and counseling. So
Yes.
for the men that may be listening or watching the recording, who have spent years carrying emotional burdens in silence, or not even years, just recently, what are some
Yes.
practical first steps towards healing, support, and emotional
Yeah.
wellness?
Yeah, recognizing the symptoms, they are what they are. You're not crazy. You're experiencing exactly what you're experiencing, right? So, one, you just got to know you're not crazy. Secondly, I think you have to know that you don't have to be crazy to get counseling. We think, oh, it's not that bad, right? When we watch Black films or hear Black music or Black TV, Black radio, it portrays mental illness grossly. Somebody's freaking out, wigging out. So we think, oh, that's what I got to be to get counseling. Absolutely not. That's a misinterpretation. That you literally, I encourage you to get counseling while you're well, before you feel like you even need it, right? Because just of the daily stuff, right? That it's good to get counseling, not when it's too late, or
Yeah.
we could have been corrected something by the time that you get there. So I'm encouraging mental health counseling early. So acknowledging the symptoms, it doesn't mean that you're crazy. It means I'm preventing myself from getting to
Yeah.
crazy. But I have a Black male therapist who I absolutely love, and one time. And his goal is to get other Black men into therapy. And I saw a post that he made on someone's Black male's Facebook page, and he says, "Dude, you're too many people depend on you to be raw dogging it through life." And I
Mm,
thought, what a great Black
wow.
male way to say that to
Yes.
another Black
Right.
male,
Yes.
right? You got
Yes.
too many responsibilities and people depending on you for you to be going through life without support.
Yes.
And without the support of a therapist. So I way recommend that you go there. I'm glad that you're moving your body. If you are moving your body, that helps, right? You're re-stimulating that vagus nervous system, or that vagus nerve in your central nervous system. Keep moving your body. If you're not moving your body, start slow. Move your body. Pay attention to your appetite. You're eating a certain way because your body is craving something that you may not be able to get through so on in other healthier ways. But I want you to start taking a look at your appetite. Develop a support system.
Right.
Here's one thing that we don't do well in the Black community. We keep going to the places where we believe we should have support, like it may be mom or dad or a sibling. But oftentimes, those people, when we get off the phone, we feel worse. It's like, why did I call them? But you continue to call them, getting the same end. I'm like, no, identify a healthy support system. I
Yes.
know support should come from them, but it can't.
Yes.
But get people who can support you, that you actually feel better after you talk to. I wish that we would do a better job with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. So those are definitely make time for friendships. Yes, you're busy. You feel like people don't want to hear you or be with you. Yes, we do. Yes, we
Yes.
do. Yes.
Yes.
Make time for your friendships and make time for hobbies. Life is more than just working and struggling. So it's like these simple things, maybe that we know or that we don't know. But if this is your permission, like, man, I need you. Just this week, I was studying a Dr. T, and I know we're going to be wrapping up here. The what do you call it? The longevity, the life
Yes.
cycle, right?
Yeah.
Asian men are living into their well into their 80s.
Yes.
White men, my stepfather, 85. My father didn't
Yes.
even make, he made it to 70, if he
Yeah.
made it to 70. the life expectancy of a Black man is down here. I think it's like 61.8, 61
Mhm.
years and 8
Yeah.
months. That
Wow.
so saddens me that
Yeah.
I'm like, keep doing the work and putting it out there. We need our brothers to live longer than 60,
That's right.
61.
Yeah.
Right. It saddens me that our lives are cut short at
Right.
60,
Yeah. Yeah.
61. No,
Yeah.
no, no.
Yeah, and I'm going to reiterate, we want our brothers to live. We want our
Yes.
brothers
Oh,
to
yeah.
live.
Yeah.
And just
Yeah, we
like
need
Jesus
you.
died on the cross for us to live, what patterns of
Right.
behavior in your life must die in order for you to live?
Yeah.
That pattern of behavior of suffering and silence, you're not
Yeah.
alone, right? And that there is help
Yeah.
out there. And yes, we have a few minutes left, but I want to also just have you share with us a little bit about the Center for Men's Mental Wellness that you founded in Jacksonville.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. T. I want to go back to men, we need you. I wish Black women would do more of that to tell the brother we need them. We're so trained to, I don't need a man, I can do it myself. Listen, brother, we struggling out here without you. Do you hear me?
That's
We
right.
need, yes, we need you, and we need your longevity. Our sons, our children, our daughters need you. So,
Yeah.
yes, I don't think they hear it enough. And so here are two women. Yes, just reiterating that we do need you. The Center for Men's Mental Wellness, I created that because Jacksonville sits behind these amazing bars. The students pay $52,000. It's a predominantly white institution, it's private. And so the parents who drop their kids off feel safe behind those gates.
Yes.
But I'm like, it sits in the hood. It
Yeah.
does not contribute to the hood, and that bothered me greatly. How could you sit in the middle of a community that you don't pour back into, and the community see those gates as bars?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I did was did a needs assessment. What are the needs around here? The people around here, when I look at the news, I see the faces of Black men. And so what we realized is that women and children have access to services. It's the men on the news, and they have no access to services. And
Yes.
so I partnered with Mayo Clinic, Baptist Health, who gave me funding, and
Mhm.
gave me the space to create a Center for Men's Mental Wellness. And I started doing research. Hey, what are the interventions? I can't just put a Black man on the
Yeah.
couch and get him
Right.
to start talking.
Right.
But 98% of the clients are Black men. And honey, when they come in, we roll the red carpet out for them. I had
Mm,
my male students to decorate the place, right?
yeah.
So if I hadn't done it, it would have been flowers or I don't know, blue. But when I tell you these students designed a space where brothers can come in and know that they belong, it's an
Yes.
amazing space. And we
Yes.
track their wellness. So we get to track their symptoms and their progress in 8 particular areas. And we
Yes.
get to see the men flourish. And they're so grateful. And we don't charge them. The
Yes.
center is for men who do not have insurance or they're underinsured. It's free of service. And the students love it so much so that it's JU students and the University of North Florida students who
I
come and
love
work in
it.
the Men's
I
Center.
love it. And I believe you're right down the street from Bishop John Gunn's church, because I think I went to visit his
Yes,
church and you were just opening you, and I went and drove by
yes,
where the center is just so
yes,
I could see where it was
yes.
located. Yes.
Yes. 32209. It's where
Yeah.
the white gunman shot up
Yeah.
the Dollar General here.
I
And
remember. Yes.
yes, it was the weekend that we opened because we needed for Black men in that community to come and have a space. And my uncles are so tough. Like, oh, you took
Right.
one of mine, I'm gonna take one of yours. Dr.
Right.
T, to see these men vulnerable and
Mm,
afraid for their
mm,
families that someone could come into the community to take something that belonged to them was unnerving. So
yes.
yes,
Yes.
yeah, it's
Yes.
an amazing place.
And I want our listeners to know this is just one resource in Jacksonville, but there are many resources. My guest,
Yes,
Dr. Brian Jones, he is licensed in Georgia and Virginia. He's providing free counseling services. He was on my show a couple months ago. We have Black
yes,
Mental Wellness, Black Therapists
yes,
Rock. So,
yes,
feel free to reach out to me via, the messaging on Facebook
yes,
Live or LinkedIn or YouTube. You'll have
yes,
Dr. Summers' contact information that will show up on the screen, that you can reach out to us if you are seeking help. We can help you
yes,
with finding trained, qualified, culturally responsive clinicians in the state that you are in. So just remember, we need you, Black men. We need you to
yes,
live, and we
yes,
want you to live. Absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So as we come to an end, this has been a great conversation, which I knew it was going to be. But I'm
Yes.
just wondering, is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners that we have not discussed? Any messages that you would like to leave with the men?
Yes, I think we've covered the gamut, right? Like, how can pastors support our men?
Yeah.
What kinds of things can Black men do, recognizing the symptoms? And I think I just prematurely talked about going to counseling. That's a huge step for men to even come to grips with going to talk to somebody about my business. It sounds so counterintuitive, right?
Yes.
Especially when we've trained them to not talk, to not trust, to not feel. But yes, men, the holding things in, and we talked about how it's exploding and seeping out, you would really be surprised at how helpful it is just to come out of your mouth. Talk therapy seems like this ain't gonna help me, but
Mhm.
to be able to say things and for you to hear your own thoughts out loud with someone who's objective is power within itself. You trusting someone to sit across from you to say things you've never said before. I love, Dr. T, when people say, I've never said this before. You're the first person I'm telling. It's a
Yeah.
sacred gift. I
Yes.
literally feel like when that door closes behind me and the
Yes.
client on the couch, that is sacred and it is an intimate space. And I'm totally trusting God with the wisdom, the understanding, the discernment, and the knowledge to be able to help the man who is sitting across from me. So I'm saying, and we're just here promoting mental health, but I'm
Yes.
saying, yes, please go and please try it. This is something that will help extend your life beyond this 61.8. You deserve to live longer than that. Your family deserves, your community deserves to have you
Yeah.
here longer than 61.8 years.
Amen. Amen. What a wonderful conversation. I am so grateful
Thank
for
you.
you. I'm thankful. We've been on this
Yes.
journey because I remember when you started the symposium, coming out of the Bridging the Gap MBCC symposium. You and I have
Yes.
talked about development, we've talked about faith. And so I know this was nothing but God bringing us together just for the benefit of the kingdom. So thank you so much for joining us on
Yes.
Talking with Dr. T tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So, as we come to a close today, we are reminded that strength is not found in carrying everything alone. For many men, the weight of expectations, responsibilities, disappointments, grief, and pain can become heavy when carried in silence. Yet, healing often begins when we find the courage to acknowledge what we are carrying and allow trusted others to walk alongside us. I want to thank Dr. LaTanya Summers for helping us to explore the emotional, spiritual, and mental health realities that so many men navigate every day. Her insights remind us that seeking support is not weakness, it is wisdom. And caring for our mental health is not separate from our faith journey. It is a part of our journey towards wholeness. Please join me next month as we recognize Bebe Moore Campbell's National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. This annual observance honors the legacy of author, educator, and mental health advocate Bebe Moore Campbell and brings awareness to the unique strengths, challenges, and mental health needs of Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities. It also reminds us that mental health is shaped not only by individual experiences, but also by culture, community, identity, access, and belonging. Thank you for joining us tonight. God bless you, and we will see you next month.